Seeing none, we can move to approval of the minutes. It's the March 8th meeting, or March 8th, 2021 meeting. Did anyone have any changes or additions to the minutes? All right. Hearing and seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Cummings moves approval.
It's moved by Cummings. Is there a second?
Fredson, second.
Seconded by Fredson. Is there any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Jenna, could you call the roll?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson, Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zirin, and Barber.
I just got in, so I don't know what I'm voting on here. Could you repeat?
The minutes,
Minutes.
Councilmember.
Aye.
And then Barber.
Aye. With that, the minutes are approved. Next, we're moving on to something we haven't seen for a while, but always makes me happy. We're moving on to employee recognition. I think I'm turning the floor over to Wes.
Great. Thank you, Chair Barber and council members. We haven't seen this for a while. We've always in the past brought periodic employee recognitions to the Transportation Committee to be recognized. And we stopped doing it when we went virtual, thinking that this would be more temporary than it is. And well, we've waited long enough and want to get back to doing the employee recognitions on a regular basis. And this is an opportunity for the Transportation Committee to recognize the extraordinary work of our employees. I'll say this, in this case, it's not only extraordinary, it's heroic and it's exciting. And we don't always want it to be this heroic and exciting in the future. And I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne Parsons, the Transportation Manager, South Garage, to introduce our honoree today.
Good afternoon, Chair Barber and members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Dwayne Parsons. I'm the Transportation Manager for the South Garage. I'm here today to present Bus Operator 2141, Tony Fitzgerald, for recognition of his courageous actions on February the 12th, 2012. The details of the event are contained in the following article. Operator springs to action after encountering a scary scene. South Garage operator Tony Fitzgerald has just left the Cedar Grove Transit Station when he saw a vehicle in front of his red line bus begin to spin, crash into a snowbank, and send a puff of snow into the air. As he got closer, he realized the gravity of what he just witnessed. A small pickup truck, its driver still seated in the driver's seat, was teetering over the edge of the Highway 77 bridge spanning the Minnesota River. I expected to see a car up against the snowbank, and instead it was up over the wall, half on and half off, Fitzgerald said this week. I swore to myself, immediately pulled over and contacted the Transit Control Center. Fitzgerald briefly stopped at the driver's side door, but the man inside was initially unresponsive and the door was too badly damaged to open more than a few inches. While another man went to the passenger side door, successfully freeing the driver, Fitzgerald joined others who were adding their body weight and sandbags to the truck bed, hoping to keep the vehicle from falling 40 feet into the wetlands below. When the driver was safely out of the vehicle, Fitzgerald invited him onto the bus where he could collect himself and stay warm. Minutes later, emergency responders arrived and Fitzgerald continued in service, relieved that no one was harmed. I've seen more accidents and spinouts on that highway in the past few weeks than I have in more than 20 years of driving, but I've never experienced anything like that before, he said. Footage of the February 12th incident, captured by highway cameras, later appeared on the news. The driver of the truck reportedly had no serious injuries, and the truck was safely recovered without falling off the bridge. With that, I present bus driver Tony Fitzgerald.
Yay. I'd say virtual applause. And I just want to say thank you. It's so nice that we're doing this, and what a great thing to bring to us too as we bring back employee recognition. To Tony, congratulations, and really thank you for your courage and your quick thinking. We know you guys do this every day, but this was really something where we got to shine as the problem solvers in the world. So congratulations and thank you so much.
Chair Barber, I'm wondering if we can get Mr. Fitzgerald closer to the camera so we can see him. You're too far away. You're the one being recognized here.
I'm trying to maintain social distancing.
I appreciate that. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And really, thank you for your quick thinking. I mean, that's really going above and beyond and very appreciative. And I'm sure that driver is more than appreciative. So thank you.
Great
Thank you.
work.
Yay. Well, that was fun. It's nice to do that again. Next, we're on to our next order of business is the tab report. And we have Mr. Dugan here.
Yes. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, honorable committee members, General Manager Cloistra, Director Thompson, and of course, Jenna. But may I particularly extend a warm welcome to Mr. Fitzgerald. I'm not sure I would have done the same. I probably would have chickened out, sir. But congratulations to you. The chair's report from TAB. We welcomed 2 new TAB members. Council member Jessica Robertson from Blaine and Council member Bob Coughlin from Savage under the auspices of Chair Barber, and Council member Lidstrom handles Blaine. The MnDOT report, MnDOT is still waiting guidance on federal COVID relief funds, which will be coming. And MnDOT announced the revival of 2 sets of grants. One is called an infra grant, and it stands for the Department of Transportation, the Federal Department of Transportation's Infrastructure for Rebuilding America, and it concentrates on highway and freight routes of national and regional significance. And MnDOT is planning to use this for an I-494 project. The second grant that has been reestablished was formerly known as the Tiger Grant. It's now called the Build Grant, as in better utilizing investments to leverage development. And it is the federal government's push towards road, rail, transit, and port projects that meet national objectives. MnDOT also announced that it adopted the recommendations proposed by its Sustainable Transportation Advisory Council. And a couple of those recommendations for you are clean fuel support, electric vehicle support, increasing charging infrastructure, and a 20% reduction in vehicle miles traveled by 2050, that's 50, prioritizing HOV lanes and other solutions before going to roadway expansion. In the MPCA report, you may be interested to know that the Clean Car Minnesota rulemaking comment period ended and they received 10,000 comments. From the MAC, which I always find interesting, the Metropolitan Airport Commissions, going through security during spring break were 26,000 people per day. In 2019, it was 45,000. March had an average of 339 daily flights, and April plans 343 flights. Currently, MAC is utilizing 146 domestic routes and 20 international. MAC itself opened a rapid COVID test site on the connector bridge between the F as in Frank and G as in George concourse. The results cost $99 and take only 15 to 30 minutes. All kinds of payment is accepted, but what MAC wished to make everyone aware that some airlines and destinations are now requiring tests before boarding, and all travelers, perhaps your constituents, when you talk with them, should obviously check with the airlines and get there early. And Delta's rapid test site is now closed. From the TAC chair, John Solberg, TAC is doing presentations on the Minnesota Go Plan, which, as you know, is more formally known as the statewide multimodal transportation plan. It's a 50-year plan of visioning for all transportation needs in the state, and it started in 2011. TAC is also reviewing a program on how to make changes to the RVT and the regional bicycle trail network. These will be presented to the TAB in the future. I know in your consent agenda, you have two streamlined tip amendments, and if I just may, even though they're consent, as you will recall, streamlined tip amendments are allowed if they are consistent with the transportation policy plan, not regionally significant, and no formal scope change. Not regionally significant, again, I'm sure you're aware, but I'll just say it anyway, is from the Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR, which is the codified government regulations, and regionally significant goes to the aspects of what you would think, regional employment centers, sports complexes, large housing developments, principal arterial highways, etc. But when we hear the words regionally significant, and although used in the TPP, it is a federal regulation. The first streamlined tip amendment is in Councilmember Gonzalez's district, and it's a drainage repair from Scandia to Franconia on Highway 95, which I learned goes from St. Cloud to Cottage Grove. And the second one is a Section 5310 streamlined tip, and that's a timing issue of when the vehicles are to be purchased. The third business item that TAB dealt with is on your non-consent agenda as item number 5, the federal performance measures. On the information sessions, as I conclude, the regional solicitation feedback in preparation for the next 2022 solicitation. The major issues that will be looked at from 2020 is unique projects, geographical balance, simplifying categories and scoring measures, evaluating new measures in 2020 as to how, or I should say, yes, how they worked. And these were affordable housing, connection to affordable housing, and pedestrian safety. And then also a sensitivity analysis, which Mr. Thompson can certainly correct me on, but as I understand it, it is a statistical analysis of the impact of each scoring measure on the outcome, the total outcome of the score. And again, Director Thompson can certainly correct me on that. And we had presentations about equity considerations in transportation policy. And as I'm sure you know, they are on the Met Council research site. And the first was by Dr. Edward Getz, who's the director of the Center of Urban and Regional Affairs at the U. And his topic was whiteness and urban planning. And the gist is that the racial concern, or the concern of race, has always been prominent in urban planning, but not whiteness. And race in this context is related to BIPOC populations and community. The next presentation, continuing equity considerations beyond concentrated areas of concentrated poverty, was presented by your own researchers, Mr. Schroeder and Ms. Reiber Torres. And basically, it is a moving away from the HUD definition of racially concentrated areas of poverty towards a new, more general areas of concentrated poverty. And the way, in effect, what would happen is there could be, in future solicitations, that would be, depending on you folks, bonus points for engagement and how a project affects lives in the area, as opposed to 6 years earlier, that was not brought up. And it would treat the full spectrum of inequality, root causes, and a better understanding of the census tracts that make up an area. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Degan. Questions from council members or comments? All right, seeing none, thanks again, Peter. And then we will move absolutely on to reports. We have MTS Director Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. Updates this week.
The infra loan program that Peter mentioned that was discussed by MnDOT at TAB is actually a application that was submitted last Friday as a partnership between the Met Council and MnDOT. This is an application requesting $84 million through the federal infra program for the I-494 highway project in Bloomington, Richfield, and Medina. This is funding that would submit funding already secured through the Corridors of Commerce program for the project that adds a min-pass lane on the corridor, rebuilds the 35W 494 interchange, and rebuilds interchanges at Portland and 12. This is a key project that we've identified in the TPP, and it's expected to start construction later this year. This federal grant, if awarded, would allow several phases of the project that are going to be delayed if we do not get this funding. So anticipating it's a highly competitive grant, but I think the state in this project is well positioned for a project in this category of funding at the federal level. As a COVID update, last week we had only one reported positive test among our contracted transit workforce, so very good news there. Ridership for Metro Mobility continues its slow rebound, with ridership now at about 55 to 60% of pre-COVID levels. And there are some signs that the growth of ridership is accelerating on Metro Mobility in the past couple of weeks. And we kind of correlate that to the uptick in vaccines. We anticipate that will be a lot more return to ridership among our Metro Mobility customers after they've all completed their vaccine process. Our essential healthcare worker trips have been reduced to about 50% of their peak demand, but seem to be steadying out at that level. And that change is due to us implementing a fare that began on March 1st. We will continue to monitor that, but with the Metro Mobility demand, we still are able to handle healthcare worker levels, trips at about that level. And on some good news, last week, all the operators for our contractors and suburban transit providers have been offered vaccine appointments. They are in the group that has been prioritized as 1B along with Metro Transit. And those vaccine appointments have primarily been offered through the state's Mall of America site. The Ramsey County also stepped forward and offered 600 appointments for Metro Mobility drivers. And we do know a lot of our contracted drivers and operators are also, once they became eligible, found some of their own test sites for vaccines too, at maybe local pharmacies or local places. But it's good news. We're getting our frontline drivers into the system for getting vaccines. So with that, Madam Chair, I conclude my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Thompson. Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Thompson, I'm curious on the infra grant, if MnDOT is successful in getting that grant. I know it's very competitive, but if they are, and currently that min-pass lane on 494 is a ways down as far as a priority in that overall scope of that project. So would it only be, first of all, I guess I have a couple questions. What's the period of time in which that money would have to be expended? And then would it reorder just the min-pass portion? I know they've got it divided down into sections and different projects. So would it just be the min-pass portion of the project that would be moved up, or would it sort of reorder the priorities of the 494 project in general?
That's a great question, Madam Chair, Council Member. They've divided that project, I believe, into 9 different segments that can be prioritized. If this grant were to be awarded, I think this would get us to segment 6, which includes min-pass, a portion of the min-pass lane from 100 to 35W. It is not a full vision for min-pass on this corridor. But it also, by rebuilding it funds the Portland interchange and the 12th Avenue and the railroad bridge, which it's going to accommodate a future min-pass lane. And so it's setting up for that. But MnDOT has also kind of looked to the future and says they're going to get the whole project ready as they search for additional funding. We're probably at about $100 million gap if we receive this federal award. They want to be ready with the design
so that if there's a new transportation package or new federal funding, that they can have one construction project. And so they're preparing for that. It's going to take a lot of heavy lift to get that, fund that gap, but it would be such a better project, and also such less disruption if they can be built as one project instead of a couple projects over a 10 or 15-year cycle. So I think this is an important step, but there's still a significant gap that needs to be filled to complete the full vision for that project.
A quick follow-up?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you for that. Hopefully with infrastructure rising up the federal levels in importance, the funding opportunities will change. But is there a time frame in which that infra grant has to be spent?
Yes, there is a time frame. I don't know it offhand, but the way this project is being set up, it would start construction in the fall of 2022. And this federal money we'd meet their timeline for sure, because all that's required is that the project must start.
Oh,
I think before 2024, and there's no problem starting that phase. So I don't think there's any risk, and that actually makes that's a significant advantage to this project nationally, because being ready is one of the criteria for being competitive on this process. And I think this process is probably more ready than almost any major project in the United States, because it's been in the development for so long. And so I think there's a lot of good reasons why this should be very competitive, and that's one of them.
thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? I'm just saying I'm going to be very hopeful for the 494 project, being as I'm a South Metro resident. So yeah, it would be nice to get it done all at one time. That would be much better and be very helpful for severe congestion area or problems in the metro and the south side. On to next, General Manager Koistra.
Madam Chair and members of the council, I'm going to start with COVID update. I was just thinking as we were talking that I'm going to celebrate the day I don't have to talk about COVID in my report, but we still do. It's still really important to us. It's still something we're managing through and really impacts us on a day-to-day basis. But Metro Transit has had a total of 382 employees who have tested positive now for COVID since the start of the pandemic 1 year ago. Since the last Transportation Committee meeting on March 8th, we've had 7 employees test positive for COVID. We're not seeing any patterns or hotspots by work location, and we're not experiencing any operational impacts. And I say that a lot when I give these COVID reports, but that's not by accident. We do a lot of work on contact tracing, on masking, and so forth that I think really has held down the impact on a very large workforce. In terms of a vaccine update, as of this time, as Nick mentioned, all Metro Transit 1B employees are eligible for COVID-19 vaccinations. 1B employees are typically those employees who are online transit workers, cleaners, operators, etc., people who have contact with the public or contact with numbers of other employees. And last week, our vendor was able to deliver COVID-19 vaccinations to more than 600 bus and train operators at the Mall of America clinic site. We also know that we've had another vaccination opportunity here at Haywood that came upon us because of the availability of vaccines that were not being used that we took advantage of. So we know between that and other opportunities that operators have taken advantage of based upon their qualifications for vaccines, we believe we have nearly 1,000 of our operators who have received and transit workers who have received at least one shot. So it's good to see that happening. When I was at the garages for Transit Operator Appreciation Day, I had a number of them volunteer that they'd already signed up for this, and you can see that they're really appreciative that this is available. We've worked hard to get prioritization for the transit workers, and as have the transit workers in terms of getting prioritization for vaccines. Over the weekend, the vendor began contacting all other 1B Metro Transit employees to offer the vaccine this week at the Mall of America site. Beyond our work to vaccinate Metro Transit frontline essential workers, we continue to work with the Minnesota Department of Health to pilot the mobile vaccination buses. Our staff are really excited about that opportunity, and the goal remains to have the first one of these buses ready for deployment by mid-April. And we're anticipating up to six buses total being used to get to underserved, hard to reach populations throughout the metro and the state. It'll be a statewide effort. COVID continues to affect ridership. Latest ridership statistics show that ridership is down 59% system-wide. Bus is down 58%. Blue Line is down 61%. Green Line is down 57% rather. North Star is down 96%. I will say that we're starting to see improvements. I can recall not too long ago where I was reporting Blue Line and Green Line ridership down more than 70%. So we are starting to see a little build back in ridership, although slow. We are also involved in trial preparations. Metro Transit continues to monitor and plan for potential service impacts due to the trial of Derek Chauvin, and jury selection on the Chauvin trial began March 8th, the same date of our last committee meeting. There were demonstrations in downtown Minneapolis on the first day, and transit service experienced some minimal service impact. Since that date, there have been some additional marches rather than demonstrations, and our planning efforts seem to be paying off as we are quickly able to make service adjustments and communicate in real time with our customers via ride alerts and social media. Transit police and operations remain connected with the Operations Safety Net unified command structure and will be fully engaged as the trial moves forward, and opening arguments are made as scheduled on March 29th. With regard to better bus stops, later this week, our Engineering and Facilities Department will mail letters to Minneapolis and St. Paul City Council members regarding the 2021 Better Bus Stops planned work. Every spring, we send these letters as a courtesy at the start of every construction season. Metropolitan Council members who represent the districts where we have planned improvements will also be copied into these letters to City Council members. As you know, Better Bus Stops program is aimed to improve the customer's waiting experience with shelter replacements or upgrades. And in 2021, our program plans to add up to 25 new shelters, replace up to 30 aged shelters, and construct up to 50 accessible boarding pads at bus stops without shelters. So there's a lot of work ahead of us on that, and those activities in your district you'll be receiving notice of. I'll finally just mention that I had an opportunity to visit each of the bus garages on Transit Driver Appreciation Day, or Operator Appreciation Day as we refer to them. And it was really a great experience. I hadn't been out to the garages for some time because of COVID protocols. I was masked.